My name is John Hay. I'm from Wolverhampton. I'm a fellow from 2006, and I was awarded a fellowship to travel around Europe, America and Canada, and I was researching deaf museums, how they operate, how they're funded, how they provide access, with a view to setting up a British deaf museum, and that's in Warrington. We already had one in the past, but it was growing very, very slowly. And before I travelled for my fellowship, we had 2 small rooms, and we now have 5 or 6 rooms. Since my fellowship travels, I've been invited to go to Norway and to Sweden to give talks on museums, archiving, and really helping them develop their systems, because I visited their museums and they wanted to see how other museums were developed and run and so on. So it was sort of how we could help each other and using that to help them. And I was really pleased. One of the museums in Finland had closed. And it was one of the best ones that I'd seen, but it had closed because the government had cut off their funding. Our museum over the last while, it's starting to get well known through websites, better publicity, advertising, magazines and so on. And the number of parties that we have visiting the museum now, coming from universities, from schools, both deaf and hearing schools, because more schools now have got deaf children within mainstream schools, part of their mainstream education policy. So it's making the hearing children aware of deaf culture, deaf history, deaf art and so on, and it's a very visual thing, talking about how deaf people were educated in the past, speech therapy, hearing aids, audiograms. So, and a lot of deaf children don't even know that history. They used to wear these big box hearing aids. Now we've got these little tiny things that go in your ear. And, telephones that we used to have, now we've got mobile phones. So it's showing people the changes and how things have moved on. So it's educating people as to how deaf people were in the past. My report has been summarised, published in deaf magazines, sent out to various people. But I think a lot of people weren't aware of how to apply for funding, how to apply to the trust. So I was lucky to have a relationship with British Deaf Association, and there was a Congress of Deaf Fellows, because there have been a lot of deaf fellows sort of on their own that have done things, but they didn't really fit into their local association, Churchill Association, because of communication problems, because of funding, getting interpreters, various things. So, I have to thank the Memorial Trust for supporting me to set up the Churchill Deaf Trust. So it was a few days before Churchill's birthday. We had our first get-together, and it was fantastic. It was a great get-together. So after 2006, it was difficult getting the word out to the deaf community because things were very slow. I think looking back over the last 50 years, there's sort of one fellow every 2 years on average with a hearing impairment. And that seems, sort of average, seems sort of normal. I would like to hope to see, at least one deaf person every year. And I think a lot of it is through better publicity, deaf media and so on. I'm one of the older generation. I have to think about how we get publicity through, social media, through Facebook, Twitter, things like that. One of the things I have to think about, all the other different ways. I don't have Facebook, I don't use Twitter, but thinking about young people who do. For me, I'm a real Churchill fan. I think it's fantastic, and I think the Memorial Trust is, one of the best in the world. I think Churchill believed in opportunities for everyone. The opportunity to learn, the opportunity to improve your quality of life in terms of yourself and others. Sharing people's knowledge, passing on your knowledge to other people to help improve their lives, which in turn improves your life. And I think without the Memorial Trust Fund, I think we would still be stuck in the Stone Age in many ways. I would just like to say that the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust has been very, very supportive throughout my time, my project, my travels and so on, and after as well. Lady Mary Soames said, the Churchill Trust is for life, and I think it really is. We are fellows for life. We do keep in touch with each other. We do keep in touch with the Trust. And I think today has been a fantastic day. I got an MBE, but I actually feel a little bit prouder about being involved in the Moral Trust because there's only 100 people that are involved in that every year. So it's actually very, very rare. It's something very special. Of course I was honoured to meet the Queen and to get an MBE is fantastic, but to be involved in this I think is something special, and I would really like to thank the Trust for that and for their continued support and the exchange of ideas and information that happens.